think the destruction of the environment is the most important issue facing us all, and as a Christian, I believe we have an individual duty to protect the life of this world. What baffles me is that many Christians doubt the importance of protecting what we have been given. I know that at some point I will have to explain to my children why their world is degraded and what I did or didn't do about it. Therefore, I'm making a film that presents in Christian terms why we need to save the environment.
In Romans 12, the Apostle Paul is talking, and he's talking about the true act of worship. And there he says that we're not to conform to the world, but we're to be transformed by the renewing of our mind, that we're really to have a new, complete different worldview. And Paul says that as we do that, we come into God's good, perfect, pleasing will. So I say that there's three things that every human being should do. One is to discover the one that has created you. Secondly, why he's created you, that his perfect will for your life. And then finally, to do it with the rest of their life with passion and conviction.
I need to focus on a Christian engaged in a lifelong battle for the environment. Someone who lives in a spectacular location where you can see the ideal relationship between man and nature. If Tri is the man to unite people around this issue, then who is he?
Hey, well.
You must be Tri. Good to meet. Whoops!
Whoa.
There goes the umbrella. That's. I thought it might come in useful in the desert.
Yeah, well. Both sides of my family came west. One in a wagon train, and my great-great-grandfather on the other side came actually on a clipper ship. My family were truly Western people, homesteaders, ranchers. My great-great-grandfather literally had to fight a gunfight to keep his property from the cattlemen taken away from him, and that was one part of it. The other part of it was my great-grandfather on the other side, Grandfather Robinson. He was a circuit preacher. He was actually John Wesley Robinson, and he used to ride a horse from town to town in those days. And he'd walk into an old mining town, and he'd take over the honky-tonk piano in the town saloon, and he'd start pounding out old gospel hymns. And he planted churches all up and down through California and Nevada. So I think maybe I got a little of him in me as well. I wanted to do something significant with my life. There was something in me that said, you know, I want to do for others what they did for me. And so I just sort of naturally did, in fact, become a school teacher and worked in that profession for 12 years. It was a great season of time. If I hadn't found ministry as I did, I would probably have always been a school teacher, because I think that's one of the great professions, actually.
Right ahead of us there, Will, is Timber Butte. So, Tri, I've come to Boise to see you. And the reason I've come here is because I'm baffled as to why the environment, which seems to me to be the most important issue in the world, has caused such inaction and pushback from the very people who should be doing the most to preserve the environment.
Yeah, it really doesn't make sense, does it? I have a theory. And I think my theory is right. I lived through the whole thing myself, but I believe it started actually in the 60s. I was in college on the college university campus in the 60s. It seemed like everybody was an environmentalist in the 60s. We all had concerns. But when I was born, the world population was 2.5 billion. By the time I was in college, it was double that. A new book had just come out called The Population Bomb, which scared everybody to death, projecting the world population actually reaching probably 8 billion people, which were about there, and what that would mean to the world, to the earth, and to humanity. And so there was a lot of fear. And at the same time, In 1973, there was federal legislation called Roe versus Wade. Roe versus Wade legalized abortion for the first time in our country. And this created a major uproar. At the same time, and I'm trying to kind of throw this all in one pot, a man by the name Hal Lindsey wrote a book called The Late Great Planet Earth, predicting the second coming of Christ and all the things that were going to happen around that. So there was all this focus on the last days, and there was all this anger towards the neglect of the sanctity of life. And that's where really we started hearing this kind of thought, well, it's all going to burn anyway. The most important thing that we can do is get people saved so they make it to heaven and get raptured, you know. And as a result of that, just kind of neglected and pushed back on the environmental issues.